I went to the doctors recently because I've been hearing this constant 4/4 beat that's probably going at around 130 beats per minute, even when I'm not listening to any music. My doctor gave me the once over and delivered the troubling news that I'm currently suffering with a sort of techno syndrome. While the original Mortal Kombat started life as a Bloodsport homage, with the goal of digitising Jean-Claude Van Damme and cribbing a load of kung fu cinema tropes for its setting and characters, the Mortal Kombat franchise we know and love really comes into its own with the release of Mortal Kombat 2. Originally releasing in arcades in 1993 and making its way to the Mega Drive in 1994, Mortal Kombat 2 moves the action directly into Outworld. Outworld's ruler Shao Kahn is trying to gain the upper hand by holding this iteration of the Mortal Kombat tournament in his home world, giving him the home advantage and allowing him to play a little dirty. As a result, the setting and characters of Mortal Kombat 2 lean far heavier into dark fantasy, where the original game is a bit more grounded. The effect this has on the franchise is instantly noticeable, and a lot of things that have become second nature are established here. The franchise really gets to spread its wings thanks to its fantasy setting, with stuff like the living forest showing up for the first time, and creatures like the Tarkatan warrior Baraka are introduced. The Tarkatans make many future appearances in the franchise as a nomad race of violent cannon fodder that Shao Kahn uses like an army. We get to travel to lots of creative locations like dungeons filled with acid pools, elevated spaces with spiked ceilings, dragons and mysterious portals in the background, armories filled with molten metal, and many more. The action is now a little faster and snappier when compared to the previous game, and while there's no dedicated combos or any on-screen indication that you are being rewarded for doing a combo, you can still string together fluid sequences of attacks if you get creative. The dialer combo system that gets introduced in Mortal Kombat 3 certainly tries to address this, but we're still a year away from that title, so that's a conversation for a different day. The game certainly goes hard with all the new stuff as well. The character roster has expanded from 7 to 12, and everyone can now deliver 2 fatalities, a babality, a friendship, and a stage fatality depending on the location. We've also got 2 unplayable boss characters in the form of Kintaro and Shao Kahn, alongside 3 hidden characters that can only be fought in the form of Jade, Noob Saibot, and Smoke. All the returning characters from the first game have new sprites to match the look of the new characters, and every stage featured in the game is entirely new, with many more now offering stage fatalities, which contrasts greatly to the original game, which only had the single pit stage which allowed a stage fatality. We're also still in that great Mortal Kombat sweet spot where the violence is played more for laughs than shock value. In fact, this has always been an issue for me when it comes to the newer Mortal Kombat games. They're just so disgustingly grim when it comes to the fatalities. Every Mortal Kombat game from the original to MK vs DC seemed to treat the fatalities as an opportunity to be silly and add a bit of cartoony humour to the proceedings. But nowadays we've got extremely detailed dismemberments that show troublingly realistic portrayals of the inside of a human body, and I don't think it really services the game in any meaningful way. There's also a report of an MK11 developer who suffered from PTSD caused by working on the violent visuals, and I think when the portrayal of violence gets that far, then the management at NetherRealm Studios really needs to reassess their priorities. I often feel like this chase for hyper-realistic violence in the more recent Mortal Kombat games has only made its fanbase more fickle, with a more graphics-focused audience initially buying the game, and leaving a very small dedicated fanbase when they eventually lose interest after seeing all the fatalities. This can be seen in stuff like MK1's massive drop in popularity at EVO 2024, where it was the 7th most registered game at the event despite being in its first year of support. But we're getting off topic now, and I don't think Mortal Kombat having a more casual appeal is a bad thing. Fighting games need to try and appeal to a more casual audience, and as a casual fighting game fan myself, the Mortal Kombat franchise has always offered this in a really meaningful way. Even with MK2 here, we get a direct continuation of the story from the original game, with lots of dedicated screen time for the story and the arcade's attract mode, and character endings. Sadly, this attract mode story stuff is missing from the Mega Drive port. Mortal Kombat has always been really good at establishing an in-game universe and populating it with all these cool and unique characters, and that's what got its claws into me. Mortal Kombat 2 really feels like the game where all the famous franchise iconography comes from, and its look and feel was definitely echoed more in the subsequent films and expanded media. This Mega Drive version is still a great way to play the game in this day and age, even if it's not as clear cut of a SNES beta this time around, thanks to the SNES version featuring all the gore and no censorship. There aren't as many voice samples and the colour depth isn't as high, but the game doesn't slow down in the same way the SNES version does, and as a result it feels more responsive. Despite its shortcomings, this version looks, sounds and feels as good as it can on the Mega Drive, and you certainly wouldn't feel hard done by if this was your only way to play Mortal Kombat 2 at home. Make sure you play it with a 6-button controller for the most comfortable control scheme though.
Fight! Finish him!